I'm Dave with Hamilton Motor Company. Today we've got a 2022 Lexus RX, and we're going to be replacing that small factory screen with a brand new 12-inch Hamilton Motor Company Apple CarPlay conversion kit. This new 12-inch screen is going to give your car Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and a whole lot of other cool functionality. It'll be touchscreen and fully compatible with your original touchpad. Today we're going to film a full installation video for you. As well, we're going to have a video that'll show you how to configure and set up the audio the first time you get in the car. And we're going to have a video that'll go through all the features of CarPlay and give you an overview of the kit. I recommend you take a look at our YouTube channel for some of these other videos. Of course, we make models for almost every version of Lexus and Toyota. Check out our website, hamiltonmotorcompany.com, or you can reach our customer support team at 919-858-2890. And I or one of our other reps here in North Carolina will be happy to chat with you about your car. Let's get started. Before you begin, go ahead and shift your vehicle to neutral and apply your parking brake. Underneath the hood, go ahead and use a 10mm socket to loosen and remove the negative battery cable. Now power is off to the vehicle. We're going to start by removing the leather covered trim panels on either side of the center console. It's best to start down here and pop the clips up as you move from the front to the back. We'll set that trim piece aside. We'll start at the front on the driver's side once again, pop it loose, and move from front to back. Next, we're going to remove this metal look-alike trim piece. I'm going to use a small rag for this, as these smaller pieces can be a little bit hard on your hands if you're bare-handed. So go ahead and put the rag under it. We'll start right here. We'll pop it out, just like that. And you'll move up and across, separate it from the vehicle, and set it aside. I'm gonna use my thin rag here. I'm gonna reach in till I feel the seam. It runs along here. And I'm just gonna grab on that, and I'm gonna pop out. There'll be a wiring harness to disconnect for the start-stop button. There's a little tab to push down. This wire can be in there a little bit tight, and then take this trim piece and set it aside. We're now going to remove the trim around the factory screen. There's a piece of trim behind the display that would slide off like this. I like to get started on the outside trim, and it'll loosen the back trim. Then we'll take the back trim off and finish with the outside trim. You can use a credit card or a pry tool to get this loose. I'm going to use one of these thin microfiber towels. I ordered these on Amazon, and I'm just going to use my fingernails. I'm going to jump through from the side here, come around to the front, and just like that, the one on the back has popped loose. And we're going to take this one off. Make sure that all 7 of your trim clips are still in place. We'll set this aside. Now we can proceed with the primary trim piece. Just like that, we've got it free. Make sure all your red clips are still in place, and we'll set this one aside. Move back to the center console here. Place your fingers along the seam between the knob and the shift boot. Push it down. Thread the knob counterclockwise. Set it aside. Next, open up the glove box. This is the touchpad assembly. It has these metal look-alike strips on either side, as well as this leather covered trim. Get under here and rock it. Be a little bit gentle with it and the whole assembly will pop loose. There's one harness here. Press down on the clip and remove it. We're now going to remove both of these Phillips head screws. We'll use a large Phillips head screwdriver. The larger your screwdriver, the more torque you're going to get from it. If you have a small screwdriver, screws like this can be a little bit more challenging to remove. And when I say large, I don't mean the length of the screwdriver, I mean the width of it. We are now going to remove the entire center console. Once again, I'm going to use these thin microfiber towels. I'm going to grip on either side. The center console is going to come back and out. If you try to lift it straight up, you won't be able to do it. We're going to come here, and just like that, we've got it loose. Now, we're going to wiggle it free. This harness right here is going to hold it largely into place. You can remove this harness if you want. There's a little white clip in there. We're gonna go ahead and start disconnecting some of the cables. We're gonna disconnect these white ones towards the front here. And then I'm just going to leave this harness in place and set this console aside. Once again, if it bothers you, that clip right there, you can pop it free, or you can cut the zip tie and the whole thing will come free. We are now going to remove this trim box down here. I'm going to reach in with my microfiber towels on either side, the left and right, and I'm going to simply pull out. Behind it, there's going to be a couple wiring harnesses. One for the cigarette lighter, one for the factory USB, and one for the little light. Remove all three of these, then maneuver the trim box out of the original socket. I'll show you what I did down here. This small clip was clipped onto the bottom of the trim box. Simply lift it up and the little metal alligator will free from the trim box. We're gonna remove a 10mm bolt that's underneath the bottom of the factory head unit. You can see the angle at which my socket is going in. It's best if you'll jump down in the passenger wheel well, and you can use a flashlight or the light on your phone, shine it up in there, and you'll be looking back up at this angle, and you'll see the bolt. It's relatively high in there. And when it's fully loose, tilt your socket vertically and remove it on your socket. We're now ready to remove the factory radio. We're gonna go ahead and cover this metal post with our helping hand here. It's just a glove. And what that'll do, we'll make sure that we don't put any scratches on this nice piano black trim as it comes out. I'm using my 2 cheap cloths from Amazon. These are microfiber towels. That's just so I don't cut up my hands if the plastic gets a little sharp, but you don't have to use these. They're not really necessary. I'm gonna grip under here, pop it up, and pull it out. Just like that. We're gonna go ahead and free this unit. The one immediate catch is gonna be this white harness at the top for the clock, and then the unit is gonna come to a rest. We'll begin wiring it in just a little bit, as well as we'll give you a wiring overview inside on our bench. We're gonna set the unit right here for now. Next, we're gonna remove these 2 10mm bolts from the back of the unit. If you're struggling with a shallow 10mm socket, you may want to consider a deep one. The reason being, these bolts, or should I say nuts, allow the posts to go through them, and sometimes the posts can be a little bit on the longer side. Just like that, we've got the 2 nuts removed. We'll set them in a safe place. We're now going to remove the factory screen. The screen is held in not only with those bolts, but a couple clips, so there'll be a firm press up. We'll tilt the screen down, and there's going to be 1 black and 1 blue wire. The black wire is going to go into a Hamilton female. This blue wire is called the LVDS. It's how Lexus transmits the vehicle video signals. So we'll be plugging that into our new radio. This piece here, you have a couple options. If you really, really want to preserve the, entire, every little factory component, you can pop this white clip out. It's a little cheap plastic white piece with some electrical tape holding the wire to the back of the screen. Even if you went back to the factory screen, all this does is makes it a little easier to get that trim piece on. So 99 times out of 100, we say just cut that little electrical tape and you'll be good to go. Trim that electrical tape. You can see it was only electrical tape holding this on, and you could easily put that back in place if you ever wanted to go back to your factory screen. Just like that, we're gonna take the factory screen off. Be careful, this is a really shiny surface. Setting it face down on anything, it can get scratched. So set it on a towel, set it in the back seat, somewhere that's soft. Let's keep going. We're gonna talk a little bit about the wiring before we put it into the vehicle. Here's the main Hamilton harness that comes with the new kit. Of course, you're going to get a wiring diagram, but I'll give you the overview here of everything. First of all, these capped off wires are not going to be used. Just leave those alone. This main one here, labeled Mon Power with the long tan connector, is going to go into the back of the new Hamilton screen. And this one here, labeled Monitor with the purple wire, is going to plug into the original black monitor wire. Coming down to the bottom here, we have 3 of what I call the T connections, okay? One is labeled CAN, and one is going to be labeled Power. We're going to make both of these behind the factory head unit. We're going to pull out a wire attached to the back of the factory head unit. We're going to plug it into the female side of the Hamilton. We're going to plug the male of the Hamilton back into the factory head unit. So we're going to make 2 of these connections in the large gray and large white behind the factory head unit. Then we have this other one labeled touchpad. This one can be easily overlooked, but it's very important. If you don't install it, your touchpad won't work and your system will glitch. You're going to run this wire from behind here, under here, and you're going to connect it physically under the touchpad. You're going to take the wire out of the touchpad, plug it into the Hamilton female, and the Hamilton male is going to go back into your touchpad. Now there's a few last little wires on here that we're going to use. This one labeled speaker, it's optional. It's going to plug into the speaker that we include. And what is that speaker for? And a lot of people ask, do we have to use the speaker? The answer is absolutely not. But what the speaker will allow you to do is mix navigation sounds. So say you have Waze or Apple Maps on Apple CarPlay, and you want to listen to the factory satellite radio or factory FM radio. Our little speaker, which will sit behind your unit, will mix that voice navigation into your factory audio channel. Of course, if you're listening to Apple Music, Spotify, etc. on the auxiliary channel, this would not be necessary. They'll be mixed together. But this is a unique feature that the Hamilton system has to mix navigation volume with your factory audio channels. So it's pretty cool. Then you have 2 more here labeled OEM mic and camera, and that'll lead us into the second harness we include. The male yellow RCA labeled camera from the primary harness is going to plug into this female yellow RCA labeled camera on the accessory harness. That male labeled microphone is going to plug into this female labeled microphone. This is the accessory Hamilton harness. Now, when you make that camera and microphone connection, we recommend you wrap those connections in electrical tape so that as you put the wires behind here and as you're tugging, they don't come apart. Now, you're not going to use a couple connections. AV-in will not be used. UART will not be used. This one right here is the primary connector for the accessory harness. It's going to go back into the back of the new Hamilton screen. This female USB here is going to be your USB for CarPlay and for charging your iPhone. If you're playing Bluetooth CarPlay and you accidentally plug your phone into the factory USB port, the Lexus will yank you off that Bluetooth channel and it'll put you, unfortunately, back onto the factory USB channel. So if you want to charge your phone, you're going to need to use our new USB port if you also want to be playing music from that phone via CarPlay. This USB port will show you a couple options. You'll be able to route it either on the side of your center console. That's the easiest way. You can also drop it into the little trim box under your factory head unit here. You can drill a little hole and put it in your glove box. Or some people do this. We don't have official support for it, but we've heard of plenty of people doing this. You can get a daisy chain on Amazon, a male USB that goes into here and turns it into a port USB. And you can mount that port USB somewhere in your glove box or in your little trim box here. To begin behind the factory head unit, press down on the tab and you're going to remove the gray wiring harness and the white wiring harness from the back of the factory head unit. The first time you do this, there might be a little bit of pressure, so you may need to support the head unit with your other hand. We're going to take the white harness and we're going to plug it into the Hamilton female from the CAN T. Make sure you hear it snap. We'll take the Hamilton male from the CAN T and we'll plug it back into the slot. Next, on the harness labeled power, we're going to connect the gray wire. We're going to plug the Hamilton male into the slot where the original gray wire was connected. Now we're going to grab the main harness in one hand, the accessory in the other, and we're going to connect the connection labeled microphone and the one labeled camera. These are the only 2 connections that will be made between the accessory and primary harness. We recommend wrapping both of these with electrical tape. Now we're going to grab both of the tan connectors as well. Now we're going to grab both of the tan connectors as well as the purple one labeled monitor here. We're going to feed them under this plastic cross member. And this plastic cross member is very flexible and you don't hurt it if you move it around a little bit, so don't hesitate to really move it around as you feed these. We're going to take these 3 wires. We're going to feed them through this channel. You're going to want these 3 to come out on top. 1, 2 of the TANs, and this purple one labeled monitor. We'll go ahead and connect this purple one to the factory black harness. This one is easily missed, and if you miss it, your factory screen won't show up when you hold the menu button, and your reverse camera won't work. So you got to make sure you connect to this one. Now, this is the LVDS wire. This is the other wire that carries video signals for the factory screen. We include this blue LVDS adapter. 1, 2, 3. These will all go into the back of the new Hamilton screen. We're now going to take this GPS antenna, and this can go just anywhere behind the factory head unit here. We're going to take this blue wire, and we need to take this wire up top as well. This wire is going to plug into the back of the new Hamilton screen. We are also going to connect the speaker and place it behind the factory head unit. The speaker and the GPS can simply be tucked behind the back of the factory head unit. They don't need to go anywhere special. This USB, we're going to run it under these plastic components down here, and we're going to pop it for this customer between the center console and the passenger seat where they wanted it. We're also going to take this touchpad wire at the same time, and we're going to run it down to the touchpad. We're going to take this USB wire and the touchpad wire, and we're going to drop them down below the plastic frame here. And then we're going to pick up the factory head unit, and we're going to temporarily kind of set it back in its place. We'll grab the touchpad wire, pull out a bunch of slack. We'll go ahead and pull that USB down under here. So this is the final sight picture that you want. Is going to be coming out below this plastic piece. So with the slack pulled out on the touchpad wire, we're going to come back and we're going to feed it physically below this plastic frame. So we are now into the center console with both of these wires. Now it's very important you follow this closely and make sure that you're behind this plastic frame where it starts and you come out where it ends under here. With the Hamilton touchpad T in the center console, we're going to go ahead and take this black factory touchpad wire and we're going to plug it into the Hamilton female. When we reinstall the touchpad, the white Hamilton male will go into the bottom of the touchpad. We've got the trim box reinstalled now, as well as the factory head unit. We're going to go ahead and reconnect these 3 white connections that we had removed from the front of the center console. There's 2 longer ones. And then this short one that goes into the gear selection identifier. I want to make a note of caution. The wiring harness that powers the lights right here is the same exact size as the wiring harness that goes into the bottom of the touchpad. So this is a really easy mistake to make. You can think that you've got the touchpad connected, but you'll actually have the wiring harness from here connected. It'll cause strange glitches in your system. So the wiring harness from the touchpad that's going to go into the Hamilton touchpad T, the factory one is black. The one that would go into the bottom of here, the factory one is white. Okay, so make a keen note of that. Now, we're going to go ahead and reconnect one final harness back over here. This is the drive mode selection button, so that leaves us only with one harness disconnected. It's the white Hamilton harness for the touchpad. We'll go ahead and start repositioning the center console cover. I'm going to put this USB right where we want it here. Now, once again, you don't have to have that USB hanging out there. That's what this customer wanted. But you could, by all means, put it in the glove box or drop it into the center trim box here. So now what we're doing, we're lining this thing back up. There's a motion that goes forward to slide it in, backwards to pull it out. So when you're doing it, get it lined up and slide it forwards. Make sure you hear it snap all along in here. We'll take this white Hamilton male, we'll connect it into the bottom of the touchpad. Right now, again, make sure you have the correct wire for the touchpad. And we're gonna leave this out for just a second, and we're gonna go ahead and reinstall the 2 Phillips head screws that we removed. We're gonna reinstall these 2 Phillips head screws here. And the other one is down here. With those screws in place, we will put the touchpad back in. It goes in like a shoehorn in the front, and then press down from the back. Make sure you hear it snap. We're gonna transfer the red clips and the bracket from the original screen here to the new Hamilton screen. We're gonna use our long Phillips head screwdriver. We'll remove these Phillips head screws. There's 4 in total. Now we will screw these into place on the new Hamilton screen here. We're using the higher screw hole. You'll see the nice thing about this bracket, there's 2 of these little locator holes here on the bottom. Make sure those are lined up, and then we'll put the bottom screws in as well. You don't need to over tighten these. This is not going to be subject to a lot of force, so it's best just to get them snug, but no need to crank them down. For these, you can use either a credit card or your fingernail to get up and pop them up and then slide them off the screen. We'll go through and do all 4 and put them on the new screen. We'll go ahead and reinstall these 4 clips onto the bottom of the new screen. These clips are really tough. You don't really need all of them if you happen to lose or break one. If you do, our team will show you where to get more really cheaply. We're gonna go ahead and make a couple connections behind the Hamilton screen. We'll connect these 2. This is going to be the long one. The short one will go into these upper tan ports. The blue will go here. The magenta will be unused. This tiny little one will be unused. And the royal blue is going to connect to our GPS antenna here. Now you might not be able to see all of these on camera as we start to get close. It is now time to reinstall the screen back into the factory socket. You're going to take the bracket, position it back onto the original studs, but do not put the nuts on quite yet. Then you're going to take the large trim surround around the new screen, slide it over the top portion of the new screen, and align the back of it into place first. The back of that trim panel needs to go into place. There's some arms that are black plastic that need to reach into their sockets. Go ahead and get those lined up. Then you can begin to maneuver the screen. You can maneuver the clips under the screen into its factory socket. Now work around the screen as you press the screen into place while keeping the back positioned, and reconnect that factory trim panel in all of the snaps. We'll put the nut on the post on either side, and I recommend using your fingers to get both of these hand tight, and then you can come back in with your socket wrench to tighten them down. This system will not be subject to a lot of force, so you don't need to over tighten these nuts. To tighten these nuts down, you'll need either a deep socket or a short extension. Go ahead and give them a little bit of like an 1/8 of a turn after they're snug, and you'll be good to go. With the screen installed, we'll take this back trim, slide it down on the Hamilton unit. With everything clicked into place up top, we'll go ahead and finish up everything down here. This Phillips head screws back into place here. Tighten it down. And now we'll put the bolts in here and here. We're now going to reinstall both the bolts on either side, holding the factory head unit in place. You'll need either a long deep socket or an extension for this. These are the 10mm bolts that we removed on this side, and then one on that side as well. We'll go ahead and thread the gear shift knob back into place. Tighten it up and align it straight, and reconnect the shift boot. With that complete, we will move. Make sure the start-stop button has been reconnected. There's one wiring harness here. Then align the trim panel under the factory head unit into its place and snap it in. With that trim panel in, go ahead and line up this metal lookalike trim, starting at the top here, and snap it into place. We will next reinstall the leather cover trim on the driver and passenger sides. And in this case, for this customer, we're lining this USB right here between the center console and the passenger seat. We've talked about a few of the other places you can put them, but just make sure this USB, if you're gonna do it like we did here, comes out nice here. And this trim panel will hold it neatly into place right here. We're gonna go ahead and take this negative battery cable now, press it back onto the battery post, and we'll use the 12mm socket to tighten this back down. And that concludes our installation in the 2020 to 2022 Lexus RX. We cover RX starting all the way back in 2009, going up to 2022. Before using the unit, we're gonna have another video that's called How to Set Up Audio in Apple CarPlay. Give that video a watch and make sure you understand it fully. It will show you how to set up the unit for the first time. We're also, if you're interested or haven't purchased it yet, gonna make a video called the overview of this unit. It'll be the overview of the 2020 to 2022 Lexus RX unit. And that video will show you the features and how it looks. It's a really nice video to check out. We sell these models for almost every version of Lexus. We can cover almost every version of Lexus and Toyota. If you have a question, give us a call. Our tech support team is here to help you. We're based in North Carolina at 919-858-2890. Thanks.